Everyone has skeletons in their closets, from your friendly neighbor Bob to the director boards of the largest companies in the world. The only difference is the power those secrets have. When someone finds out a personal secret, it might cause a family quarrel, but that's about it. But when a whole government's secret is unraveled, an entire country's reputation can be destroyed and nations can be brought to poverty. We often get complaints that we talk about USSR too much. Well, no problem. Today we will talk about France, and more specifically about the top secret place in France. Not far from Paris lies a huge exclusion zone similar to Chernobyl. Entering it is impossible, illegal, and even dangerous for your life. Why? Stay tuned and find out. Traveling around France is the coolest experience ever. Medieval castles, the Eiffel Tower, Louvre, and many more sites had been drawing millions of tourists from all over the globe. Many tourists also choose French Riviera as their destination, putting France in all sorts of top tourist attractions lists. Not many can refuse a road trip through a beautiful green motherland of Victor Hugo. But there is a catch. After driving couple hundred kilometers northeast from Paris, you will run into many signs about some weird danger zone. In some places like Douaumont commune, you will even see fields fenced with barbed wire and strict warnings from the military. Sounds a lot like Chernobyl, doesn't it? This is a valid and correct assumption, since in the heart of France, not that far from Paris, lies a very official exclusion zone. It is well documented and is called Zone Rouge, or the Red Zone. Difference between this zone and Chernobyl is that the USSR and later Russia had to report everything about the incident and its liquidation to the rest of the world, while France, in order to keep its reputation, is trying to not talk about it and almost deny the existence of the Zone Rouge. Why? Because it is a real chemical hell, where on most of the territory 99% of all life went extinct. And it isn't some tiny patch of land which we are trying to hype up. The area of this zone is 1,200 square kilometers. With time, it has shrunk a little, but is still colossal. Out of this area, 100 square kilometers are marked as actually red on maps. And any trespassing can cause quick and not at all peaceful death. For comparison, Pripyat is only 8 square kilometers, and the entire Chernobyl zone is 2,600. What we have is that in seemingly prosperous France, there is a zone at least as dangerous and only half the size of Chernobyl. So what's going on, and how did this happen? For answers, we will go back to the good old 1916. World War I is progressing through Europe. Well, not really progressing, more like moving slowly but surely. Since this war showcased the triumph of defensive forces. Tanks were slow, aviation could only scare African aborigines, while at the same time, trenches and fortifications were way ahead of their time, so taking anything by storm was nearly impossible. So most of the battles were very bloody but lacked progress. For those who are bad at history, in those battles there were two sides. On one were Germany, Austria-Hungary, Turkey and Bulgaria. The other was Russia, France and Great Britain. There were also other allies, but for now we are going to focus on Germany versus France. Germany arrived late to the colonization game. South America, Africa and most of Asia was controlled by France and of course Great Britain. Germans were very jello since they couldn't have a piece of those delicious colonies, and Europe was on the brink of war since the late 19th century. In 1914 it finally happened, and Germans had a foolproof plan. they decided to throw large forces at France to quickly eliminate them from the competition. But as we previously mentioned, defense had a key role in this war. Germany got held back by French defenses, and even though they were huge losers on both sides, they couldn't make headway inland. The most significant in this way battle was the Battle of Verdun, which went down in history as Verdun the World Blood Pump, and created the Zone Rouge. German blitzkrieg plan quickly failed, and the battle went on for almost a year, from February 21st to December 18th, 1916. Almost 3 million people were a part of this giant bloodbath. And the cruel irony of the situation is that by the end of it, enemies held the same positions as in the beginning. And every day of this year, opponents rained bullets on each other, dropped bombs and burned people with chemical weapons. In the need, 1 million people lost their life in the battle, and all of them were left to rot in the area which is now the exclusion zone. A lot of corpses were moved later. And by this day, there is the Douaumont ossuary near Verdun, where 130,000 people are buried in a mass grave. The number itself makes shivers run through the body. And now add to this that this Douaumont settlement alone, with hundreds of others, were destroyed till the last house. But even this is not the worst part. The worst is that in some soil samples in the area, the arsenic levels exceed the norm 300 times. World War I is known as the mother of chemical weaponry usage in battle. And that's what caused such colossal damage to the ecosystem. This is what the ecological report made after the war was overstates. Zone Rouge is totally destroyed. Damage done to the buildings is 100%. Damage done to the agriculture 100%. Impossible to liquidate. Unendurable for humans. Since then, there has been little to no change. Nature is doing its best, but on the majority of the Zone Rouge, you can find the entire periodic system. Lead, mercury, chlorine and arsenic killed up to 99% of all living creatures in the area. Of course, tens of thousands of human corpses added their bit to the problem too. There have been many attempts to restore farming on these lands, but all products were unfit for human consumption. Periodically, the government changes the limitations, but even swimming in water inside the zone is forbidden. And there is more to it than chemicals and piles of used projectiles. Every year, thousands of undetonated ammunition is found in Zone Rouge. There are minesweepers who work there till this day, and enterprising locals made whole museums filled with them. In 2005, the Security Agency of France stated that on each hundredth of square kilometer of the zone lies 300 shells. And the most optimistic conclusions say that cleaning the area will take somewhere between 300 and 700 more years. Given that, the pace they have right now is not dropped. Many territories had been turned into green danger zones, but Zone Rouge is still a very dangerous neighbor. And that's the reason why no one really hears about the exclusion zone. France doesn't want their bread, meat and other products to be considered toxic and dangerous on the world market. And we won't see an HBO series about Rouge, as well as transparent data about how bad the chemical pollution really is. Rare visitors say that inside this zone is chaotic. You can take a walk in some places if you don't think too hard about the chemical beneath your feet. And in some places, soldiers can add some lead to your body if you make a wrong move towards the forbidden areas. And all this happened without a nuclear power plant, friends. Bunch of people decided to fight another bunch and started this. Here lies the real reason for banning chemical weaponry. Rulers don't care about lives lost in battles. What they do care about is that lands conquered using chemical weapons turn into unusable rouge zones. And after victory against the neighbor country, you will need thousands of years to restore lands. And that's why after World War I, chemical weapons were banned. The reasoning, however, was due to human rights. And now Zone Rouge is left as a scary reminder about how damaging war can be. Since we are talking about an area as big as Los Angeles, a single battle made this area uninhabitable and excluded for a few hundred years, which makes the fact that only 20 years later people started an even bigger and deadlier war even scarier. There are many exclusion zones like this on Earth. If this is something you want to learn more about, leave a like and tell us in the comments. We will gladly make another video about them. But for now, see you later, friends!